the end of the story before the story is over.
Do they still
Okay,
have
we are now being recorded.
Do they still have a certain percentage that they're asking for? Based on
Zog the Heilige Gemara. Zog the Heilige Gemara. We can discuss it with the recordings off. Okay, so we are at the bottom of Lama, actually right at the top of Lamed Aleph, Amud Aleph, at the Heilige Mishnah. Zog the Heilige Mishnah. Hanoider Mishoif Se Shabbos. Now this is going to be one of those aerobic exercising our biceps Gemara, because we're going to have to spin back and forth because the Ran on this Mishnah is on Lamed Amud Aleph. So let's just see the Ran. Let's see the Mishnah. Hanoider Mishoif Se Shabbos. Someone says, I'm not going to have any anah from people who are Shomer Shabbos. Also be Yisrael. Therefore, it will be also for him to have enough from a Jew. And also be Chusim.
What if they're not Shomer Shabbos?
This is a very good question. So hold that question. I'm happy you asked the question because it's an extremely important question. What if they're mitzvah, but they're not following the rules? It's an extremely important question. But also bekusim, they're also bekusim, because clearly the Ran's going to tell us that our Mishnah holds kusim gerei emesein. So they're also like, what if you said, I'm making a nether not to have any no from those who are oichle shum, from those who eat garlic? And the Ran's going to say it means those who eat garlic on Friday night, because it's one of the takanas of Ezra that we should eat garlic on Friday night because it's Mar Bezerah. So why would who makes such a comment?
Why would somebody?
He's just referring to Jews. It's a different way. Instead of saying I'm making another from all Jews or from all Heinis or from all any other way to refer to Jews, he uses the word oichle shum. Also, we would say I'm making another from oichle kishke, right?
So you're saying if a guy would eat shum, would be also for him too, or he's referring
so these are extremely important questions. You asked me two questions now. You asked me, what if I'm a chuyev but I'm not doing it? Or what if I do it but I'm not a chuyev? That's exactly what the Gemara is going to be discussing. Mo'ech l'shum aser b'Yisrael v'aser b'kusim. But my oil Yerushalayim, from those who are oil l'regel, there it's only aser b'Yisrael l'mutar b'kusim. So why is that different? So frank the Gemara.
Maybe they don't have a chiyuv.
Why wouldn't they? If they have a chiyuv of Shabbos, they should have a chiyuv of aliyah regel. They're the same Jews. Either they're Jewish or not. Right? So let's see the Gemara. My Shav say Shabbos. What does it mean when he says Shav say Shabbos? Shabbos. If it means somebody who keeps Shabbos, well then my ear yibekusim afilu oivdik echavim nami. Even if he just means someone who doesn't work on Shabbos, well then even if a guy doesn't work on Shabbos, he should also be included in the nether. Like the Ran says, not Osir be Yisrael and Osir bekusim, Osir be Mekayim Shabbos. Anybody who's Mekayim Shabbos is going to be Osir. Kadesh Yubachlal Kol Ha'ivdik echavim Hashavsim. Even goyim who keep Shabbos should be included, if that's what he meant. Someone who doesn't work on Shabbos. I understand, but he didn't say if you don't work on Shabbos, la halacha or not la halacha. If you don't work on Shabbos, a guy doesn't work on Shabbos. Right? So of course David Zolti offered up the famous story with this person who was learning to be a ger, but he was not Jewish yet, and he used to keep Shabbos. So his friend told him, how could you keep Shabbos? A guy is not allowed to keep Shabbos. So he said, what do you mean? I carry. So his friend said, what do you mean you carry? There's an Erev here. So he responded, right? So Zog to Gemara, I feel like to nami. Ella, maybe what he meant was mimitzuvam ala Shabbos. So this is exactly what Moshe was bringing up. What he meant was someone who's commanded on Shabbos. Well, frankly, Gemara, if that's the case, ihachi ema seifa. May oila Yerushalayim also be Yisrael and mutabakusim. Am I? But mitzuvim ninu. They're also kusim, just like they're mitzvah on every other mitzvah. They're mitzvah on aliyah regel. Elo amar Abaye, it's mitzvah ve'oisekatani. What he means is someone who sai is mechuyev to, and sai does. That's the person who he wants to ask himself hanoah from. Betarti ba b'kamai. In the first two cases, Yisrael v'kusim mitzvah ve'oisen. Yisrael and kusim are mitzvah, and they actually do stick to the rules. Oivdik echavim ahuda avdei. Even those of Oivdik Chachamim that keep Shabbos, they don't work on Shabbos, they're not mitzvah. So that wasn't included in his nether. But Ba'ali Yerushalayim, there it's Yisrael mitzvah v'oisin, and Kusim are mitzvah v'einois, and Kusim do not go to be oil regel. Why are Kusim not going to be oil regel? So if we look at the Rosh over here, it says she'enam oil regel And they do keep the deraisas. Why don't they? Because they're sympathetic to avodah zarah. They did avodah zarah the kusim. Shem soinim es Yerushalayim. They hate Yerushalayim. So you know where they go? They go to Hagrizim. Hagrizim bachru lehem b'makim Yerushalayim. They go to Hagrizim. And David Zolti and a Victor told me they actually sent a link that there's people today, they're called the Shomronim, who they actually are makrab karbonis. Pesach, they're makrab karban Pesach on Hagrizim. There are people today who are vice from the descendants of the Skutim, and they still go to Hagrizim and they are makrab karbonis.
So the Mitzvah is someone who actually does it, or the Mitzvah is
he's mechuyev and he follows the mitzvahs and he doesn't.
So Friday would not be included in this.
Correct. A Frayid would not be included in this because although he's mechuyev to, he's not doing it. That's exactly correct. Okay, beautiful. Zog the heilige Gemara Mishnah weiter. Koinim she'eni nehena levnei noyach. Someone makes a koinim. I will not have any hana from a goy, from a ben noyach. Mutter be Yisrael. He's allowed to have a hana from a Yisrael. The aser b'umais. So let me ask you a question: is a Yisrael not a ben noyach? What do you think? Is Yisrael not a ben noyach? Are we not descendants of noyach? So correct the Ran. The Ran asks, that's going to be my next question. Correct the Ran. The Avagav the Yisrael nami b'nei noyach ninu. Even though Yisrael are also b'nei noyach, even the Iskadish Avraham Avinu. Since Avraham Avinu became kodesh, he became upgraded from the b'nei noyach. Ikru al shemei v'loy al shem noyach. We're no longer referred to as b'nei noyach, and that's exactly what the Gemara says, like Moshe Stern mentions. Well, me novik mechlal b'nei noyach. So the Gemara, keeping the ikdish Avraham is Kurel Shemei. So the Olam asks, but the question that they asked is, why would the Ran speak out Mefurish Gemara? The Olam was struggling with that. Why would the Ran literally repeat the Gemara word for word? So sometimes maybe the Ran wanted to say that he was excited that he was mechavan to the Gemara's kasher. but it's a little bit unusual, right? The Ran literally repeats word for word the Gemara, and he doesn't seem to say anything, any knetch that's different. Okay, let's see the Gemara weiter. There's actually a very interesting shaila. When does a yid become a chuyev in mitzvahs? Anybody? When does a yid become a chuyev in mitzvahs? No, when the bar mitzvah, right? When does the ben noyach become a chuyev in the mitzvahs of the ben noyach? They become a chuyev. There's no gzeres hakos over halach l'moshe b'sinai that says 13. They become a chuyev as soon as they're of mature intelligence that they can do it. So the question is, mi'i kamidi, is there anything that it's more machmerdik by a goy than it is by Yid? That's the shaila. Is there anything that's more machmerdik by a goy than by Yid? How you talking that a goy should be mechuyev even earlier than a Yid? So there is such a shaila. I'm not sure how to deal with it, but it's an important point to note. But I'll tell you a cute story with Rabbi Yonis and Eibeshitz. Rabbi Yonis and Eibeshitz, we know that you don't get your Yetzer Tov till your bar mitzvah, but your Yetzer Hara is born with you. So somebody asked Rabbi Yonis and Eibeshitz by his bar mitzvah, "You're such a good boy. How is it possible that you were able to be such a good boy if up until now you didn't even have a Yetzer Tov? You only had a Yetzer Hara?" So Rabbi Yonis and Eibeshitz answered him. It says "V'shaftu as I forgot the lashon of pasuk, but the Gemara in Sanhedrin darshans that in order that everything should be perfectly fair, a dayan must make sure that he never listens to the taina of one baldin, not in the presence of the other baldin. They both have to be present, so it should be equal. So Rabbi Yonis said, every time the Yitzhar came out with me to convince me to do an aver, I told him, I'm really sorry, I can't listen to you until the other baldin comes. So because of that, I rejected what he said. I'm not sure how that works practically, but
he had that das before he was
he was a very Irish. Okay, Zok to Gemara weiter. She'eni nehena l'zera Avram. I will not have any anah from anyone who's from the children of Avram. Also be Yisrael. It's also for him to have anah from a Yid, but umuter be'umas oilah. Frank Gemara, what are you talking about? There's many goyim that are descendants of Avram Avinu. Like Yishmael, and for the Gemara, Yishmael is not considered the descendants of Avram Avinu because it says in the pasuk Hashem told Avram, "Ki Yitzchak yikar lechazara." Your descendants, your lineage is going to be Yitzchak's line. Frank Gemara, You go Aksim. What about Esau? That's a son of Yitzchak. It's not all of Yitzchak, it's only part of Yitzchak. Therefore, it excludes Esau. So I just wanted to make a couple of comments. They ask by Moshe Rabbeinu, he did not mala his kids, and that's why he got attacked with the snake, right?
Mm-hmm.
Remember on his way back from Yisrael, from Midian, the snake swallowed him up, and then his wife Tzipporah quickly did a bris. The question is, why didn't Moshe do the bris? Why he actually didn't do it? So the answer that they say is that he was afraid during the travels it wouldn't be safe. The problem is since we didn't have the Torah yet at that point, it doesn't say v'chai. So we had the mitzvah of Mila, yet we didn't have the mitzvah of v'chai, we didn't have the mitzvah of nishmat and lo nafshechem. So how would Moshe Rabbeinu on his own not make that bris? So he said, Rabbi Elvin said over from somebody I don't remember who, is we even without v'chai, the Gemara actually offers a logical svara, and it says better that you should be mechalel one Shabbos than be mechalel multiple Shabbos. So if there's a question of pikuch nefesh, even without v'chai, we know you're supposed to be mechalel Shabbos. Why? Because if I'm not mechalel this Shabbos, I'm going to die, and I won't ever be able to do Shabbos again. But if I'm mechalel this Shabbos, so I'm sacrificing one Shabbos, but this way I'll live for 100 years and I'll be able to keep so many more Shabbos. So that was his svara. Logically, he said, yeah, I might make a bris now, but then he's going to die. If I don't make a bris, I can make a bris next week. At least the child will have a bris and live a long time with him. So it was a logical svara even without the mitzvah of the chai be'em in the Torah. Okay, let's go right here. She'eni nehena. Oh no, the other thing is, where did Yishmael got cut out from the lineage of Avraham Avinu one generation before Esau did? Rav Hutter says something very fascinating. Christians, they believe in the Bible. Muslims don't believe in the Bible, right? They believe the Quran is the Bible. So why? Because they already left Yiddishkeit earlier, the Yishmaelim. So therefore, they have no shaykhs to the Torah. But Esau, who stayed in for the next generation for Yitzchak, Esau at least, the children of Esau, the Christians, did adopt Torah Shabbat. They amended it with their own Torah Shabbat Peh, but nevertheless, that's why, in fact, Esau is closer to Klal Yisrael and the Torah than Yishmael is. So, Zok the Gemara, what happens? Zok the Mishnah Vayter. She'eni nehenem Yisrael. I will not have any hana from a yid. I will not have hana from a yid. So, we discussed. So, what is the Mishnah? If you say I will not have any hana from a yid, lekech b'yoser. If you buy something from somebody, the purchaser has a benefit. In order that you should neutralize that benefit that the purchaser has, you have to overpay. So then you're not getting any benefit from the person who's selling it to you. And if you sell an item, you have to sell it at a reduced cost to the yid, so that you're not benefiting from it. What if he says the opposite? They're not allowed to have a no for me. So then he'd have to buy from them and pay less. And if he sells to them, he'd have to charge more. However, who in their right mind is going to be interested in doing business with this fellow, right? The Russia's if he's lucky enough to find somebody who's going to do business with him. What if he says both ways? I'm not allowed to have a no from any Jew, and no Jew is allowed to have a no from me. Then you handle almost. Then he's got to go to the goyim. In the Gura, we always say growing up, why did HaKadosh Baruch Hu create goyim? For two reasons. A, somebody's got to buy retail. Somebody's got to support the retailers. And B, to give us free tickets for the Leaf games. So this fellow, he's going to have to go buy retail now because you can't have it off a meeting. Okay, so Dr. Heilige Gemara.
Well, who said this is not a yid talking?
Yeah, a guy's in the dorm or nothing. Yeah, it's a Jew talking. Yeah. Amar Shmuel. So Shmuel said, "Halakeach kli mina uman levachli." Now, I want to make two hakdamas. Hakdama number one is we know there's three levels of shomer. There's a shomer chinam, there's a shomer socher, and there's a shoyel. And the Gemara tells us that a shoyel is chayv anointed. Why is a shoyel chayv anointed? Is because Kol hano shaloi. He has full use of the chayfetz. The Baal has zero use of the chayfetz, nor benefit because I'm not paying the Baal. So since it's kol hano shaloi, therefore he's chayv anointed. Asher Mesacher, he is giving something back, right? He's giving something back because he's not having enough from it, right? He's getting paid or something, right? So therefore he's chayiv. He's chayiv stick on gnei v'veda, but he's part anointed because not kol hano shaloi. He doesn't have full use of the chayfetz for free, right? Or if it's a soicher or shor Sharmechinam is only chayiv on pshia. So that's the first Akdama. The second Akdama is, we know that there's three types of merchandise. There's merchandise that's standard merchandise that you buy that's available every day. And there's a benefit to every purchaser who's buying it from a seller because he found the product that he's looking for. And there's a benefit to the seller because he made a sale. But there are other types of products like leaf tickets that you cannot get a hold of them. And no matter how much you pay for them, it's still a huge favor that this fellow sold it to you. So when you have something that's a very hot item, or for instance, during COVID, toilet paper, right? Or masks, things that are in high demand, gloves, but things that are in high demand, you can't get a hold of, then no matter how much the Lekeach might charge for it, the Moicha might charge for it, he's still doing the Lekeach a favor. Lekeach is desperate, right? And then there's dead merchandise. In other words, stuff that you don't need anymore. After the pandemic is over, if someone has a couple of trailers left of masks that it can't unload, there, no matter what, the buyer is doing a favor to the seller.
Can't give it away.
So we now are going to analyze what cases our Mishnah talking about, because it'll have a big impact as to whether or not I'm having enough. So, for instance, the Gemara talks about me selling for less or buying for more, but shava b'shava is not allowed, not to buy, not to sell. But in certain cases, shava b'shava, I'm doing you a favor. If you have dead merchandise and I'm paying shava b'shava, I'm doing you a favor. If you have hot merchandise and you sell it to me for its value, then you're doing me a favor, right?
There's also something less than market value. You're selling it for less than market value, but you're still making a profit.
That doesn't make a difference. Because the question is, am I having enough from you? I'm not, because I could have sold it to anybody else. You don't look at my profit. You look at you having enough from me. You know, we're looking at you, right? You're not allowed to have enough for me. So did you need me or not? So Zok Shmuel. Shmuel said, "Halakeach kli min ha'omen levakri." You bought a product from Walmart, or you bought a product from Costco. You're only really buying it to test it, because if you don't like it, you bring it right back, right? V'nenas biyadai, and it broke. It broke in your hand, right? The loch is chayiv. You're chayiv to pay for it. Why? Alma kasover hanos lakeach. You clearly see from Shmuel that when a lakeach is holding a product and he's considering to buy it, he has all the benefit of it, because if he wants, he could buy it, and he can use it until he buys it. He's like a shoyl. He has the benefit, and therefore we treat him like a shoyl, and he's chayav anointed. So based on this hanocha that Shmuel teaches us, that the person looking to buy is always the one who's benefiting, not the person who's looking to sell. With that hanocha, let's see how this fits into our Mishnah. Tanan, we looked in our Mishnah. She'eni nehenem Yisrael. I made a nether, I will not have enough from a Yisrael. So the halacha is moicher b'pachas. If I want to sell to a Yisrael, I have to sell at a discount. Otherwise, I'm having enough from the person who bought it from me. Avol shava b'shava. But if I wanted to sell it for its fair value, loy, I wouldn't be allowed to do that. But the problem is, if I'm selling for a fair value, I'm still not benefiting. It's still not another lakeach, because we said the lakeach is always the one who's benefiting. Via nos lakeachi, if the nos lakeach, afilu shava b'shava. So before I get into the teretz, it's going to be obvious what the answer is going to be. The Mishnah is speaking in a case where I have middle of the road merchandise. So therefore, if I sell it for if I sell it for reduced value, then I'm not having enough from the buyer, right? So normally you say the buyer is always having enough of it. That's only if it's maybe superior products. But if it's not a superior product, it's just something that's regular market value, So there, it's equal, which means there's a little bit of another each having from each other. But if I give you a discount, then when you're buying it from me, I'm not having enough from you because I'm giving it away for less. On the flip side, if I'm looking to buy something from you, if it's equal, if we're on a balanced level, then if I overpay a little bit, I don't have enough, right? So that's how the Gemara is going to, of course, conclude Pshat on our Mishnah. That our Mishnah is speaking about product that's middle of the road. But along the way, to get to that conclusion, the Gemara is going to offer up and analyze what if it's superior merchandise? What if it's dead merchandise? And there's no havamina that it can actually work. The Gemara is just going through the process to arrive at our destination. So each suggestion that the Gemara makes, the Gemara knows is not a good suggestion. The Gemara is just making it to illustrate why it doesn't work. So that's what the Ran explains, so that we shouldn't think why is the Gemara going into pshatim that never could have worked out in the first place. So Zok Gemara, if you hold like Shmuel, that lakeich is always benefiting, then even if it's equal, I should be able to sell to him because he's benefiting, I'm not, right? And for the Gemara, Masnisin Bizavina, the Rami Alape. Maybe the Mishnah is speaking with a product that's dead merchandise. So let's think about it. If I say that I'm not going to if I say I'm not going to have a no from any Jew, right? If I sell it to him and it's dead merchandise, I'm having huge hana from him. Since I'm having huge hana from him because I'm selling him dead merchandise, if I sharply discount it, that will neutralize my hana, right? So that's what the Gemara is saying at this point. But Frank Gemara imkain emaresha. Look at the flip side. The flip side when I'm buying. If when I'm buying dead merchandise, emaresha lekech b'yoser. I have to pay more. If I'm paying more for dead merchandise, why should I have to pay more for dead merchandise? I should be able to pay equal because I'm not having enough of it if it's dead merchandise, right? If it's dead merchandise, why should I have to overpay for it? We just determined that even if it's equal, I'm doing you a favor. And ask you another kasha. In the second case where I said Yisrael Nehen and Li, nobody's allowed to have enough from me. So what does it say? I have to purchase at a reduced cost from them so they don't benefit from me. And if they buy from me, I have to sell it for an increased cost. If we're speaking about dead merchandise, afilu shava b'shava. Even if I sell him for the right price and he pays me the fair value for it, he's not having enough for me. He's not having enough for me at all because he's paying for dead merchandise. So Zok Gemara, so maybe Seifa Bezvina Charifa. Maybe the Seifa is speaking where it's hot merchandise, and that's why he has to overpay. Frank Gemara, if it's hot merchandise, I have to buy it for less than its value because he's not allowed to have enough for me. Afilu shava b'shava. Even if it's hot merchandise and I'm paying fair value, I'm still getting a good deal. So Viter the guy is not having enough for me. Ella, the conclusion has to be, of course, Masnisin Bezvina Mitzah. The Mishnah is speaking with typical average merchandise. So let's see how the Ran fears us. The Mishnah is speaking Bezvina Mitzah, and Shmuel, who says that Lakeach always has the advantage and therefore he pays for Einstein, is Bezvina Charifa. Kloimer is up to Ran. The Bezvina Mitzah, if it's an average type of product, Ika Hanas Moicher B'Lakeach. There, the Lakeach benefits from the Moicher and the Moicher benefits from the Lakeach. Unlike where it's prized merchandise, then only the Lakeach is benefiting in this relationship. And if it's dead merchandise, then only the Moicher is benefiting. But if it's normal merchandise, then it's a win-win. Both parties to this purchase and sale benefit. And therefore, when he said that he's not allowed to have a noah from anybody else, he has to pay a little more. Why? Because all things are equal here, which means he's having a little noah, they're having a little noah. So if he says I'm not allowed to have a noah, he has to overpay to neutralize and offset his noah. Uchasha'asar hana asar al Yisrael. And when he said that the other person may not have enough from him, so then he has to pay a little bit less than the value of the merchandise to offset the benefit that the seller will have. And he has to sell it for a little bit more to offset the benefit that the buyer will have. So the other person shouldn't have enough. Because when you have an average type of sale, they're both having enough from each other if it is shava b'shava. If it's shava b'shava, they're both having enough from each other. And now here's where the Ran speaks out that, of course, all of the Havamins of the Gemara were surely not really Havamins. The Gemara knew they couldn't possibly have worked out. The Gemara was just trying to illustrate that if you're selling dead merchandise, then it's always only the moicher that is having hana. And if you're selling prized merchandise, then it's only the lekeach that's ever having hana. And therefore, in our case, if I say I'm making a neder, I'm not going to have hana from you, right? I'm allowed to buy dead merchandise from you, but I'm not allowed to buy prized merchandise from you. On the flip side, I'm allowed to sell you. If I say I'm not going to have any enough from you, I'm allowed to sell you prized merchandise, but I'm not allowed to sell you dud merchandise. But if it's shava b'shava, then all we have to do is adjust the price so that I shouldn't be having enough from you, or that you shouldn't be having enough from me. So it's pretty simple after you move all the pieces around.
Bringing this back,
right?
The item breaks. It makes a difference also.
Well, that was Shmuel's halacha. If it's prized merchandise and the item breaks, then in fact lechech will be chayav einshin. But if it was dead merchandise that I bought and it broke, I wouldn't be chayav einshin because lechech not having enough. So what I want to do is I want to just teeter around inside the second wide line. When do you have to offset the small hana that the moicher and the lechech are having? That's if you're selling something for its actual value. But if you're going to overcharge, then when does overcharging offset the hana that the lekeach is having? That's if it's a shava b'shava, it's a medium type of product. But if it's a hot product, like leaf tickets, even if I charge you more than their value, you're still getting enough for me. So even though I'm charging you more than their market value, it's still considered that the lekeach is having enough. So there's no eitzah to charge more or pay less. That only works if it's standard commodity type of items. The chinimkar b'pachas, and if you sell for less, afilu zvina the rami ala pay hanos lekeach v'limoicher. And if it's sold for less than the right price, even if it's dead merchandise, the hana. Oh, so this is not saying what I'm saying over there. So it's a vani milk and nimshav b'shav. Avakidimka b'yoyser. You sell it for more than it's worth. Afilu zvina charifa hanos moicher v'loy lekech. No, so I'm wrong what I said. Here the Ran says beferish. The Ran saying beferish not like that. So let me go back another line in the Ran because I don't think I said this right. The Gemara is trying to really reveal the halachas in all different cases. Ulashmin teach us the zvima deramin al pay. If it's dead merchandise, hanos moicher v'lo lekech. Only the moicher is having hana, not lekech. That's good. Uzvina charifa, if it's a hot item, hanos lekech v'lo moicher. Uzvina mitzia is hanos shneim. Oh, v'hanim milikanich cheshav b'shava. All of these rules. So I'm wrong what I said. All of these rules are only if you're selling it for its exact value. I'm sorry.
Zvina mitzia.
Zvina means it's a product. No, that means it's a product that's not a hot item, but it's not dead merchandise either. It's standard merchandise. So they're sort of equal. And all this, these three rules that lekeach has enough if it's a hot item, the moich has enough if it's a dead item, and they both have enough if it's an average item. That's only based on a purchase price that's exactly market value. But if you charge a lot more, well then avilu zvina charifa hanas moicher v'lo lekech. Meaning leaf tickets, let's say the rack costs $100. I don't even know what they cost. $100. If I charge you $300 for those tickets, no matter how hot they are, I've still taken away your hana because of how much I charge. Basically, money will always offset a benefit. You might need more money to offset a bigger benefit of a zvina charifa, but enough money will offset it. That's mamish what the rule of supply and demand is. enough money offsets that advantage, because ultimately in business everything is equal, everything neutralizes, and if something's not available, people pay more and more for it. And even if it's dead merchandise, but if you discount the price so much, even dead merchandise. So at the end of the day, everything can be fixed with an adjustment of the price. But our mission that talks about Pachas and Yosy is speaking about middle of the road inventory. I remember when I was learning in Lakewood, that's when the boom started, where people were building the subdivisions and selling them. They would always be sold at a pre-purchase price. So let's say it was for sale at $100,000, and you would put down $50,000 as a deposit for pre-construction, and they would give you drawings of what your house was going to look like and give you the specs. Now, I don't know if you ever heard this, but most of the builders in Lakewood had a reputation to be crooks. If you speak to people today about the builders in Lakewood from 20 years ago, there's very few of them that have good reputations. They're all considered to be good. Why? Because as they're building, they would look for cost savings and they would modify the drawings. And the person who bought it would say, hey, this is not what you promised. So he would answer, no problem. I'm happy to refund you the deposit. Because by the time construction started, he was able to sell that property for $200,000. The prices were rising so quickly. It was the house in Lakewood was called a Zvina Harifa. And that's why people were so angry, because they were stuck. They had no recourse. They're not going to go sue the guy. And the guy would be happy to let them back out. To the contrary, it's better for him if you back out, because you financed me up until now for free, and now I can make more money on it. So that's why people have such. Normally, people don't curse people out, but people feel so abused and so taken advantage of that they're mamish angry, and this would happen very, very regularly.
It happens in Toronto.
I'll have it later.
Condo dealers will sell, and then prices went up, you can sell the condo for so much more that at some point they say, "I forget, I'm giving you back all your deposits." So there needs to be regulation.
Oh, so you're in the condo market, they have a right to do that.
They have a right.
In those, they didn't have a right to back out, but they would do
They get a
things,
bad
consent them.
reputation, but they have a right.
Look at that. Unbelievable. So let's see the Gemara Vayter. Let's see the head of the Gemara Vayter. So now we've dealt with the value of merchandise. Tanya Kavatei. We actually have a brisa that supports Shmuel's position that when it's Zvina Harifa, when it's a hot item, the Lekeach is benefiting, unless he's severely overpaid. You might ask, how do you know if he wasn't severely overpaid? So the Ran actually forgot to mention that whatever the Lekeach took that he was considering, it was a fixed price. The price had already been accepted and negotiated before he walked away with it. So therefore, he's in the driver's seat, because if he decides he wants it, it's his. He doesn't have to then go and negotiate a price. So Tanya Kavaz in the Shmuel, Halakech Kelim in a Tagar, the Shagr and the Beis Chama. You want to send your Kala a gift. So you go to a craftsman and you buy something beautiful, you buy her a beautiful necklace, and you send it to your father-in-law's household to give your Kala. You don't know if she's going to like it or not. So the Amarloi told the vendor, if my Kala likes it and she accepts it from me, and he knows not to make me. The necklace costs $10,000. I'll pay you the $10,000. The mlav, what if she says I don't want it? And he knows I'll give you a restocking fee. In other words, I have a no, even if she refuses it, because she says I wanted to buy her a beautiful gift. There's value even in that for me. And at the end of the day, selling a product that was returned is a little bit of a damage to you as well. So I'm happy to pay that. What happens if it's nensu? Something happened. The necklace was stolen with list mezuyim with an oinus. If it's bahalicha, if it was on the way to her house, chayiv, he's chayiv. Why? Because then he's still a potential lekeach. And as we said, a potential lekeach, he's having all vano. But b'chazara, if after she refused it, now it's going back, putter. You know why? Now the she'ela is over. Once the she'ela is over, I don't have enough from it anymore. So therefore, I only am a shemer sacher. So if it's an oinus, I will be putter, and if it's a geneva vaveda, I will be chay. Ha'usav sira the shakol chamer lizvuni. There was a broker What he would do is, if you had donkeys, he would say, okay, how much you want for the donkey? $100. Pay you $100. He said, I'm going to take this donkey and I'm going to go to the market. And I'm going to try to sell it. If I sell it, my profit, and I'll pay you. Or he paid you already. It's my profit. But if I can't sell it, I'm bringing it back to you and I expect a full refund. And that's how these brokers work. But happened was he took it to the market, Veloy Isvin. He couldn't sell it. So now he's bringing it back to return to the owner. The Hadi the Hadar, on his way back, is this hammer. There was an oinus and the animal died. So the question is he chayiv? What would you say? Chayiv or potter? Why was on the way back?
So what? You didn't get it.
By the kala, when he sent it there on the way there, it was chayiv neinshin, but on the way back, it was like a shem esach already, because he wasn't buying it anymore.
Yeah, but still have a credit, you know?
No, you shouldn't have a crash. He should be like a shem esach. He's quite a neinshin. He's only if it's kol anah shaloi, do you say he's chayiv neinshin? So, but the halach is Rav Nachman passed like you. Chayiv Rav Nachman l'shlumei. Rav Nachman made him pay. Eisvei Rabba Rav Nachman. Why is that? Didn't we learn that when you send your kala gift on the way back, it's only like a shem esach? Nentu balicha chayiv et b'chazor potter. Amalei, he told him, Rav Nachman told him, you're making a mistake. This is not sending a gift to a kala, because chazor dis hafsira halachi. Even when the broker's on his way back for the market, he's still looking to sell it. The ilu mashrich lezvuni, I feel above the base. He could be in front of the owner's house and he meets somebody who wants to buy it. He'll sell it there on the spot. So therefore, a broker, it's always on the way there. He's always in the driver's seat. He's always having the full anah because he's willing to sell it at any moment. Sure, he tried to sell it at the market, but it doesn't mean it's not for sale anymore. So you cannot compare it to the case of the kala, where once the kala refused it, it's for sure going back.
Way back, you found the guy to sell it.
Uh-huh.
That's exactly what.
Oh, well. So I didn't get past there, so we're going to stop here and we'll be Mamshech B'ezras Hashem on Shabbos. So on Shabbos we're going to learn 1 hour before Mincha and Mata Shabbos because Moshe has Avos Abonim.
No, I don't need it. If I come on Shabbos, I don't need it.
Okay, so that means we can start 7:30,
Yeah.
or so you don't care if we start 7:30.
No, because I can't come Monday Shabbos.
Uh-huh. Okay, so then I set out that we're going to learn 8 o'clock. We'll learn 7:30 Mata Shabbos and we'll learn an hour before Mincha on Shabbos.
Unless I don't come. But you're saying now.